Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well. And with Console Phasmo releasing on the 29th, I thought it would be fun to make another video to help out these newer console players. And this video will be catered towards people who aren't very familiar with the game, and we can go ahead and just jump right in. So tip number one I have is being able to distinguish a ghost event versus a hunt. A fun little way to check if the ghost is hunting is try to flick a light switch, and if the ghost is hunting, the light will not flip. And on top of this, all the lights will turn off after a hunt. So if you know the ghost is hunting and then all the lights just go out, then you know the hunt is going to be over. And for ghost events, usually it's standing in one spot showing itself. Sometimes it'll walk towards the player, or will even do an airball hiss. And these ghost events will always drop players' sanity, and the hardest one to tell if it's a hunt or not is whenever the ghost is walking towards you, but on a lot of the difficulties there's a grace period, and so when the ghost starts hunting, it'll be 2 to 3 to 4-ish seconds where it will just be standing in place before it starts moving around. If you're playing on one of these easier difficulties and the ghost is just immediately walking towards you, you might get a little spooked, but you'll just know that the grace period should be in place. And then the hunts, the ghost will manifest and then start chasing the player. Usually on smaller maps it's pretty easy to hear, but the front door will always close during hunts. And so if you're relatively close to the door, you can usually hear the front door close and lock, and then that's how you know the ghost is also hunting. Tip number 2. Challenges are easy money. When you're first learning the game, the rewards from each match might seem a bit underwhelming. A nice saving grace is that each week there's a weekly challenge mode, and you have to correctly guess the ghost 3 times to get rewarded, and once you complete this, you will be awarded $5,000 and 5,000 XP. And something to keep in mind is that the equipment for this challenge mode is always going to be provided, so you don't have to worry about dying and losing your stuff. And these weekly challenge modes will rotate every week with random gimmicks and modifiers. It does kind of vary each week. Adding on to this, there's separate weekly challenges. It might be something like detect the ghost X number of times with a motion sensor. This can be an easy way to get an additional $500 and 500 XP. And there's also daily challenges that are easy and give a small little extra bit of money and XP as well. And it really does add up a lot. One of my favorite things to do in this game is I like to ditch my flashlight whenever I'm hauling objective items to the ghost room. And so after finding the ghost room, it's usually crunch time trying to return to the truck and grab more gear. I like to drop my flashlight in or around the room, along with anything else in my inventory. So whenever I run back to the truck, I'll have 3 inventory slots to be able to grab 3 items. And I usually like to keep 1 or 2 main lights on so I can see on my way back. Once you play enough, you'll be able to navigate in the dark pretty well. Tip number 4 is experience is the best way to learn the game. Obviously there are a lot of amazing guides out there with loads of useful information, but developing a solid game sense really comes down to how much you've played the game. A lot of the gameplay is just effectively reacting to a wide variety of cues in game. The game really comes down to effectively reacting to a wide variety of cues in game, and I feel like I still learn a lot of new things about this game even after 400 hours. Tip number 5 is communicate with your team, and I doubt any of you would fail to inform your team of any evidence, but communication goes beyond just evidence gathering, letting your team know where certain hiding spots are located, calling out a ghost event, maybe the ghost is wandering outside the ghost room and might start hunting. Also calling out the hunt when it starts if you see or hear it, obviously before you hide. Similarly, calling out when the hunt ends can be very helpful to people. Tip number 6 is to push yourself a little bit. You might surprise yourself. I remember when Nightmare first came out and it was the first time there was an evidence hiding difficulty in the game, and the amount of ghosts I got wrong or failed to survive was crazy. During that time of trial and error, I learned a lot about general ghost behavior. I got a good feel for how the sanity drain is, but I also started to pick up on specific ghost abilities. In my opinion, the game really comes to life once you get into the higher difficulties where you have to rely on ghost knowledge and less on the evidence. This might seem minor, but there's a lot of important settings I think people should have on this game. I would say this is almost a requirement. Turning on push to talk or muting your mic when you're not talking is honestly really important. I've played a lot of games where people will have open mics and you hear background noise, and that noise will attract the ghost during a hunt. Even if you're in a hiding spot, I've seen it plenty of times where someone's making sounds in their open mic and then it ends up getting multiple people killed. On a different note, there is reticle customization in this game. You can customize the color, shape, and brightness, so adjust this to whatever feels the most comfortable for you. And then another thing is FOV is really nice to turn up. If you're sitting close to a small TV or playing on a monitor, I really highly recommend turning your FOV up so you'll be able to see more. Tip number 8, I just want to go over some evidence tips. I've seen some confusion with dots. Some players seem to think if the ghost walks near the dots, it will always be showing the dots. However, the dots is confirmed to be a separate interaction. And so if a motion sensor is going off near dots or it walks through salt near dots, that doesn't necessarily rule out dots. I always like to double and even triple check Spirit Box and freezing. Spirit Box can be sometimes annoying and hard to get, and then it always takes a while for the temperatures to go down, so don't rule out anything until you've thoroughly checked them. Things like the writing book and dots I like to put down pretty quickly. It's nice to have them down early. Writing is usually easy to get and kind of passive, but dots can sometimes be a pain. Probably the most useful tip for gathering evidence is using salt to quickly check for UV. Place the salt in the doorway to the ghost room and maybe somewhere in the middle of the room, and whenever the ghost steps in salt, it will walk around and possibly leave a few footprints that you can detect with UV. My 9th tip is, I recommend you go for that perfect game. Once you kind of have a feel for how the game works, I'd say that you should always plan to go for the perfect game. And a perfect game is filling the book completely with 3-star photos, picking up the bone, and then completing all the objectives, and then obviously guessing the ghost correctly. Salt, interactions, and crucifixes are an easy way to get photos. Each salt pile stepped in counts as a separate photo. The ghost will usually be throwing things or opening doors. And then if you're quick, the crucifix burning counts as an interaction. And then you can also take a follow-up photo for a burned crucifix photo. And this can be very helpful towards the end of the game if I haven't gotten enough interactions. Most objectives aren't really too hard and will give you good money regardless if you get the perfect game or not. So good luck. And then my final tip is to make friends within the community. I learned this game pretty well through a combination of things. The beginning is always a lot of trial and error, and after starting to get a good game sense, I started to pick up on things on my own, while also paying attention to ghost behavior for ghosts I was unfamiliar with. I also learned a lot of higher level skills from other players. Information on very small or subtle behaviors help rule out ghosts is easy to learn when you're playing with others. I'd say the best scenario is also playing this game with other people who are learning it as well. You can combine knowledge and share information while also having fun, and in my opinion that's the best way to play the game. And I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope this was pretty helpful, and thank you guys so much for watching.